Qantas is about to fly passengers 22 hours straight from Sydney to London. No stops, no breaks, no relief. Everyone else in aviation tried to kill this idea for a reason. For over 50 years, the industry has operated on one rule: break the journey, feed a hub, fill the seats. Qantas is doing the exact opposite. They're spending billions on an aircraft most passengers say they don't even want. And the strangest part is, Qantas already knows that, because the 22-hour flight was never really for you. On paper, this flight should not exist. Conventional wisdom says that after 16 hours in a metal tube, passengers start demanding a break. Legs cramp, backs seize, moods collapse. Airlines know this, which is why the kangaroo route between Australia and Europe has always been a two-step journey through Dubai, Doha, Singapore, or Hong Kong. Qantas is about to throw that playbook in the bin. Starting in late 2026, they'll launch Project Sunrise, a non-stop service linking Sydney directly to London and New York, using a custom-built Airbus A350-1000. The flight will be the longest commercial route in history. But here's the thing almost nobody is talking about. The economics of this route don't work the way you think they do, and the people paying for it aren't the ones sitting in economy. To understand how Qantas got this confident, you have to go back to 2018. That's the year they quietly launched a route that most industry analysts dismissed as a vanity project, a non-stop Boeing 787 service from Perth to London, 17 hours in the air. No layover, no hub, just one long push across the Indian Ocean into Heathrow. Analysts predicted it would struggle. The aircraft was too small, the route too punishing, the pricing too aggressive. Instead, Perth to London became the single most profitable route on the entire Qantas network. Load factors hovered above 90% almost from day one. Business class sold out months in advance. The airline discovered something the industry had missed for decades. Passengers weren't rejecting long flights, they were rejecting layovers. Specifically, they were rejecting the exhausted 2 a.m. terminal shuffle in an unfamiliar airport where nothing was open and nothing worked. Kill the layover, and suddenly, 17 hours in a pressurized tube becomes the premium option, not the punishment. Perth-London generated a yield premium of more than 20% over one-stop competitors. That single data point rewrote the entire internal calculus at Qantas headquarters. Because if 17 hours worked, 22 hours might work too, but only if Qantas designed the aircraft, the cabin, and the customer list from the ground up. And that's where the strategy stops being about flying and starts being about something much more calculated. Here's the part most aviation analysts missed. The Project Sunrise, a 350-1000, carries just 238 passengers. A standard A350-1000 can carry over 350. Qantas deliberately removed more than 100 seats. Therefore, the aircraft flies lighter, carries more fuel, and reaches destinations no full-load widebody could reach. But that's not the clever part. The clever part is what filled the empty space. Over 40% of the cabin is first business and premium economy. There are 6 enclosed first-class suites with separate beds and lounge chairs. There's a central well-being zone with stretching areas, hydration stations, and guided movement screens. On paper, it looks like luxury. In reality, it's an engineering necessity disguised as indulgence. The aircraft physically cannot fly 22 hours with 400 bodies and their luggage on board. The weight math doesn't close. Therefore, Qantas sold the weight constraint back to customers as a premium experience. But it gets sharper. A premium passenger on this route is worth roughly 3 times an economy passenger in pure revenue terms. So the break-even load factor on Project Sunrise is dramatically lower than a normal long-haul flight. Qantas doesn't need every seat sold. They need the front of the plane sold. And the people buying those seats aren't tourists. They're corporate executives, high-net-worth leisure travelers, and members of the Australian diaspora willing to pay thousands extra to save 4 hours and skip a midnight terminal. Qantas isn't selling transportation, they're selling time. And time on this route is the most expensive commodity in the sky. So the aircraft is light, the premium cabins are full, and the route prints money even with empty economy seats. That's the surface story. And if that's where Project Sunrise ended, it would already be one of the most financially elegant plays in modern aviation. But this is where the first loop closes and a much bigger one opens, because inside the industry, people who've run the numbers quietly admit something uncomfortable. The profitability of Project Sunrise isn't the point, it's the byproduct. The flight itself was always a means to something far larger. Remember, Qantas is geographically isolated. They sit at the far end of the world. For decades, that isolation made them dependent on Emirates, Qatar, and Singapore Airlines to feed passengers through their hubs. Every Australian who flew to Europe enriched a Gulf carrier along the way. Project Sunrise ends that dependency in a single stroke. Any passenger who books the non-stop route is a passenger the Gulf hubs will never touch again, and that's uncomfortable enough. But the real target was never the passenger. It was something much higher up the supply chain, something Qantas had been hunting for years. And the moment you see it, the 22-hour flight stops looking like a route and starts looking like a weapon. In 2017, Qantas CEO Alan Joyce stood in front of the global aviation press and did something no airline chief had ever done publicly. He challenged Boeing and Airbus by name to build him a plane that could fly Sydney to London with a full commercial payload. He called it the Project Sunrise Challenge. He set a deadline. He attached a multi-billion-dollar order to the winner, and then he walked away and let them fight. Boeing pitched the 777-8, an ultra-long-range variant still years from certification. Airbus pitched a customized A350-1000 with an additional center fuel tank specifically engineered to Qantas's geographic nightmare. For 3 years, the two manufacturers traded revisions, concessions, and price cuts. Therefore, Qantas wasn't buying a plane anymore. They were running an auction for the most prestigious route in aviation history, and Boeing and Airbus were bidding against each other using the one resource they could never get back: engineering capacity. Airbus eventually won when Boeing's 777-8 program slipped again, but winning came at a price. Airbus had to redesign the A350-1000's fuel system, recertify the airframe for the new weight, and absorb a significant portion of the development cost. Qantas secured a custom ultra-efficient flagship fleet engineered entirely around their specifications. An airline from a country of 26 million people had just forced the two largest aircraft manufacturers on Earth to build a bespoke jet for them. And the world's biggest airlines, Emirates with over 250 planes, United with over 900, had to watch from the sidelines. This is where the trap snaps shut, because now look at the position Qantas has engineered. Emirates cannot copy Project Sunrise. If Emirates flies London to Sydney non-stop, they strand the entire Dubai hub that their business model depends on. Every non-stop flight is a passenger their connecting terminal doesn't see, a hotel they don't fill, a connecting fee they don't collect. Qatar has the same problem in Doha. Singapore Airlines has the same problem in Changi. Therefore, the three carriers best positioned geographically to challenge Qantas on the kangaroo route are the three carriers structurally incapable of doing so. Their own success is their cage, but it gets worse for them. Because Airbus engineered the custom fuel tank A350-1000 specifically for Qantas, competitors hoping for a similar solution would face significant barriers to matching the route. The aircraft itself is partially moated, then there's the route itself. Sydney to New York currently forces travelers through Los Angeles or Auckland, adding hours and a customs transfer. Project Sunrise eliminates that entire friction. For the Australian corporate traveller heading to Wall Street, there will be exactly one airline offering a non-stop option. Exactly one. No price competition, no alternative carrier, no layover workaround. Qantas will hold a de facto monopoly on the single most valuable business route between Australia and the United States. And because the aircraft carries only 238 seats, scarcity is built into the product. Premium cabins will sell out, yields will climb, and there is no way for a competitor to flood the market with capacity because no competitor has the aircraft. This is the part analysts kept missing. Project Sunrise was never a flight. It was a structural lockout dressed up as a travel upgrade. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable, because while Qantas has engineered itself a monopoly on both ends, the people actually buying economy tickets on Project Sunrise are paying thousands of dollars to sit in a tube for 22 hours on a plane that was never designed for them. The well-being zone isn't really theirs. The enclosed suites aren't theirs. The customized aircraft, the negotiated Airbus discount, the yield premium, premium, the 3-year manufacturer auction, none of it was about the economy passenger. They're in the back because the weight math requires a small number of them, not because Qantas built the route to serve them. Therefore, the 22-hour flight delivers exactly what Qantas promised: non-stop service, time saved, a genuine engineering achievement. But the value captured from that achievement flows almost entirely upward to the premium cabins, the shareholders, the balance sheet, and the strategic moat against 3 of the world's wealthiest airlines. The final surprising detail: Qantas has quietly structured the Project Sunrise fleet so that if demand ever softens, the aircraft can be redeployed to other ultra-long-haul routes no other airline can operate. Melbourne to Dallas, Brisbane to Chicago, Perth to Paris. The 12 custom jets aren't just a fleet, they're a set of keys to routes that don't exist yet, and the airline now holding those keys just happens to be the one that bet on a flight everyone said nobody wanted. So the question isn't whether Project Sunrise will work. Qantas already knows it will. The real question is what happens when an airline turns geography itself into a monopoly, and whether Emirates, Qatar, and Singapore ever find a way to break out of the cage they built for themselves. If you want to see which carrier is quietly setting up the next one, the YouTube algorithm thinks you're going to like this video next, so why not check it out?